I slept with her twin sister without knowing it. I thought I did something terrible, but what happened in reality? They always say that twins have a mysterious connection, some psychic bond or secret code that no one else understands. I used to think that was just romantic nonsense. Now, I think it's something much darker, because I was in love with one half of a mirror, and I didn't see the trap until it had already snapped shut. I met her at a friend's birthday party. The room was crowded, loud, and buzzing with cheap wine and meaningless chatter. And then I saw her, a calm in the chaos. Tall, striking, with dark hair tucked into a loose ponytail, soft brown eyes, and a kind of quiet confidence that makes you want to know what she's thinking. We talked that night. Nothing deep, just jokes, awkward pauses, shared glances. But I remembered her. And, as luck would have it, she remembered me too. A few days later, I got a message. Then came coffee, dinner, walking in the rain like characters from a cheap movie. Before long, we were inseparable. She told me early on that she had a twin sister. Identical, she warned. So don't freak out if you ever bump into someone who looks like me but completely ignores you. I laughed, but when I did finally meet her sister, I did freak out quietly. They were carbon copies. Not just in the way they looked. Same bone structure, same tiny scar above the right eyebrow, same dimples when they smiled, but in their energy. They moved the same way. They had the same rhythm in their speech. If you closed your eyes and just listened, you wouldn't know who was who. It was uncanny. The only thing that saved me from total confusion was that they dressed differently. My girlfriend, let's call her Maya, wore soft, relaxed clothing. Think beige sweaters, mom jeans, hair loosely tied. Her sister, Lila, on the other hand, was bolder, bright lipstick, earrings that caught the light, high buns, tighter dresses. They had an unspoken agreement to look different, and I was grateful for it. It made life a lot easier. Over time, I got used to the idea of dating someone with a clone. It stopped bothering me. I even found it funny, like some bizarre social experiment. And Maya, she was everything I ever wanted. Kind, supportive, funny in a dry, sarcastic way. We had this easy chemistry that made life feel lighter. Like maybe for once, I didn't have to try so hard to be understood. We'd been together for over a year, living together for 6 months. Things weren't perfect. No relationship is. But they were good, stable. And in this world, I've learned that stable is a rare kind of happiness. But then came that night. It was a Wednesday, I think, one of those midweek evenings that feel neither here nor there. I was at home after work, watching a stand-up special on YouTube, laughing like an idiot at things I knew I'd forget the next morning. Around 7:30, I got a call from Maya. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice soft. "I was thinking, why don't we do a little dinner tonight? Just you and me. Candles, music, something cozy." I smiled. I like those nights. The simple ones. The ones where love felt like a warm kitchen. "Sure," I said. "I'll get everything ready. Just bring yourself." She said she'd be home in an hour. I got to work. I cooked pasta with a creamy mushroom sauce, her favorite. Lit 3 candles on the table, dimmed the lights, and put on some mellow acoustic playlist in the background. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was us. She came home a little after 8, carrying her work bag, cheeks slightly flushed. "Hey," she said, smiling as she kicked off her shoes. "Smells amazing." "Go change," I said. "Dinner's almost ready." She nodded and headed to the bedroom. When she came back, she was in one of my hoodies, the oversized gray one she liked to steal, and black leggings. Classic Maya. We sat down, poured wine, and started eating. We laughed. I told her bits from the stand-up show I watched earlier. I remember she laughed a lot that night. A little too much. Maybe like she was trying to match a script. And then it happened. "Can you pass the salt?" I asked, realizing it wasn't on the table. She got up, opened the wrong cabinet. Then another. Then another. I tilted my head. "You don't remember where we keep the salt?" She paused for a second. "Ah, sorry. I'm just really tired. Long day." I chuckled and pointed. Top left above the stove. She grabbed it, smiled, came back. I didn't think much of it in the moment. People forget things, especially after work. But looking back, that was the first crack. After dinner, we moved to the couch. One thing led to another, and we ended up in the bedroom. We've been intimate many times before, but this time, something was different. Her touch felt unfamiliar, like someone trying to be familiar. But I didn't stop. I didn't question it. The change was exciting, fresh. I told myself we were just reconnecting in a new way. Afterward, she got up to shower. I lay there, eyes on the ceiling, feeling strangely alert, like my brain was trying to tell me something it hadn't yet formed into words. And then I saw it. Her phone, on the nightstand. It was unlocked. That was the first red flag. Maya always locked her phone. Not because she was hiding anything, but because she was one of those people who didn't trust the universe with open screens. This phone didn't even have a lock screen. I picked it up. The wallpaper was different. Not the photo of us at the beach, but a generic pink swirl. I frowned. Then I remembered Maya's joke from months ago. We even used the same phone password. We really are clones. I typed the code. The phone opened. Messages loaded. And then I saw it. A chat between Maya and Lila. Recent. Unread. I tapped. Lila. He has no idea. Maya. Good. Let him sleep with you. Then I'll tell him what I did. He won't have a right to be angry. Lila. Are you sure this is okay? It feels wrong. Maya. He deserves it. He said he trusted me. Let's see how much he trusts you. My blood went cold. I scrolled up. There was Maya had cheated with someone from her office. She admitted it, and instead of coming clean, she had talked her sister into helping her punish me, to make it look like I had cheated too, so that I'd have no ground to be angry or leave. I stared at the screen. The room suddenly felt too quiet. My body felt detached from the bed, from the air, from time itself. The door creaked. Lila walked back in, towel on her head, wearing Maya's robe. She saw the phone in my hand. She saw my face, blank, drained, hollow. She froze. It's not what you think, she said quickly, voice trembling. It wasn't supposed to be like this. But I couldn't even find the words. I just looked at her eyes, her mouth, her skin, so familiar and now so alien. Just leave, I said quietly. Please. She stood there for a moment, like she was going to say more, then turned and left. And I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, the phone still in my hand, the betrayal sinking in like slow poison. The night passed in fragments. I barely remember falling asleep. My thoughts were tangled, like fishing lines knotted in the dark. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her or them in flashes, their identical faces, their shared smirk in those text messages, the towel wrapped around her head. My brain refused to process it. It wasn't just betrayal. It was psychological warfare. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just lay still. My chest felt heavy, like someone had poured cement inside me. In the morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, slicing the room into harsh shadows. I sat up slowly, as if waking up inside someone else's life. The bed beside me was cold and untouched, and the robe she wore was still draped over the chair. The phone was gone. She must have taken it while I was sleeping. I didn't care. The damage was done. The truth had already hit me like a truck, and now all that remained was the aftermath. Pieces of me scattered everywhere. My own apartment didn't feel like mine anymore. The candle stubs from last night still sat on the table. The plates from dinner were in the sink, pasta congealed and crusting at the edges. It all felt like evidence from a crime scene, and in a way it was. I walked to the kitchen and opened a cabinet above the stove. The salt was right there, staring at me like a punchline to a joke I no longer found funny. How many little signs had I ignored? The awkward laugh, the wrong perfume, the unfamiliar rhythm in her touch, and most of all, the salt, that tiny moment when everything could have unraveled if only I'd looked a little deeper. My phone buzzed. It was Maya. I didn't answer. Then came another call, and another. I watched the screen light up again and again, her name flickering like a dying bulb. I turned the phone over and left it face down on the table. Silence was all I could offer. I needed air. I threw on a hoodie and stepped outside. The street was quiet, the sky overcast. I walked without a destination, just moving for the sake of motion. I passed the coffee shop where we used to sit for hours, the bookstore she loved, the small park bench where we first kissed. Each place felt poison now, stained with the memory of something that had been slowly rotting while I was too blind to notice. She cheated. That word echoed in my mind like an alarm I couldn't shut off. And instead of apologizing, she engineered a scenario to flip the blame, to make me guilty, to make it equal. Who does that? You have to be broken in some way to even think of something like that. And her sister, what kind of person agrees to that kind of plan? I'd always thought they were close. We don't keep secrets from each other, she used to say. Now I saw what that really meant. Loyalty, sure, but to each other, not to me. Back at home, I finally listened to one of her voicemails. Just one. Please, let me explain. It's not what you think. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. I didn't know how else to fix it. Please, pick up. Fix it? She destroyed something beautiful and thought the solution was to drag me down with her, to stain what we had with something even more cruel, and then act like it was the same. I sat down on the couch and stared at the wall. What's worse, being cheated on or being manipulated into feeling like you cheated too? I didn't have an answer. All I knew was that I didn't recognize her anymore. Not the woman I cooked for. Not the woman I held. Not the woman I loved. Later that afternoon, there was a knock on the door. My stomach twisted. I opened it. It was Maya. Her face was pale, eyes swollen, like she hadn't slept. Her lips parted slightly, as if already mid-apology. I just need a minute, she said softly. Please. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds before stepping aside. She walked in slowly, carefully, like she was scared to touch anything. Maybe she should have been. I was still deciding what to feel. She sat down on the edge of the couch, hands wringing in her lap. I know what you saw, she started. Good, I said, folding my arms. I made a mistake. I raised an eyebrow. No, I said, you made two. First, cheating. Second, planning some twisted trap, so you wouldn't have to take the blame. She bit her lip. I was scared. Of what? That I'd leave you? You think tricking me into sleeping with your sister would make that better? She looked down, silent. Was it worth it? I asked, seeing if I'd fall for it. Did you enjoy watching it happen from the shadows? She shook her head. It wasn't like that. I didn't watch. I wasn't even nearby. I thought, if you believed you made the same mistake, we could start fresh. I laughed, cold and bitter. That's not how healing works. That's not how trust works. You didn't want forgiveness. You wanted justification. She covered her face. For a moment, she looked like a child who got caught stealing candy, not someone who dismantled a relationship brick by brick. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I'd already said goodbye in my heart. I didn't even realize it until that moment. But something inside me had snapped loose, and the part of me that once fought for her was gone. Get out, I said. She looked up. I said, get out. She stood up slowly, opened her mouth to speak again, but thought better of it. Then she walked to the door, turned one last time, and whispered, I'm sorry. I didn't reply. She left, and for the first time in over a year, the apartment was truly quiet. The hours after she left dragged on like a slow, painful burn. I didn't move for a long time. I sat in the same spot, staring at the door as if it might open again, as if she'd come back and say it was all a bad joke, that Lila was never here, that the messages weren't real, that none of it happened, but the silence was louder than any apology could ever be. I eventually stood up and walked to the bedroom. The sheets still smelled like her. Like them, I didn't even know who they belonged to anymore. The bed had become contaminated, a stage where I unknowingly played a role in a script written by someone else. I stripped the sheets off in one motion and threw them into a garbage bag, then tied it closed as if that might somehow seal away the humiliation. I opened the windows. The air was cold, sharp. I welcomed it. I needed to do something. Anything. Just to remind myself that I was still in control of something. So I started cleaning. I scrubbed the kitchen, wiped down counters, took out trash that wasn't even full. I picked up the candles from last night and tossed them. The wine glasses, too. I cleared the table like I was clearing memories, except the memories refused to go. Every time I passed the cabinet above the stove, the image of her, no, of Lila, opening the wrong drawer replayed in my mind. Such a tiny detail. So innocent. So revealing. It made me sick. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling through my photo gallery. I had hundreds of pictures of Maya. Selfies, vacation shots, her asleep with her mouth slightly open, videos of her dancing in the living room, snippets of our life, little digital memories we'd built together. And now, all of them look like lies. My thumb hovered over the select all option. I couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, I opened a chat with her. I scroll back, way back, to the beginning, to the awkward jokes, the late night, I miss you messages, the first, I love you. God, how blind was I? Did I ever really know her? I backed out of the chat and opened the one with Lila. It was mostly empty. Just a few birthday messages and the occasional meme. Nothing intimate. Nothing to suggest the chaos they'd cook up together. But it wasn't just the messages. It was the intent, the coordination, the choice. She could have come clean. She could have told me she made a mistake. We might have worked through it. Or maybe we wouldn't have. But at least it would have been real. Instead, she tried to turn my heart into a courtroom, where her crimes would be balanced by mine. Except I wasn't the one who lied. I wasn't the one who plotted. I wasn't the one who handed my trust over just to twist it into leverage. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Lila. I know you probably hate me right now, but I wanted to explain. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. My first instinct was to block her, but a deeper part of me, the part that hadn't gone completely numb, needed answers. Tomorrow, 1 hour, coffee house on 5th, noon. Come alone. I sent it before I could think too much. The next day, I arrived 10 minutes early and picked a booth near the back. The place was nearly empty. A few students hunched over laptops, a tired barista wiping the counter. It was a slow morning. Fitting. At 11:59, she walked in. Lila, but not the version I'd seen last night. Today, she wore no makeup. Her hair was loose and frizzy. She looked smaller, like guilt had shrunk her. She spotted me, hesitated, then walked over. Hi, she said, barely audible. I said nothing. She sat down across from me, fidgeting with the sleeve of her sweater. The same hands that had touched me now trembled. I'm not here to justify anything, she began. I know what I did, what we did. It was wrong, beyond wrong, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I stayed silent. She exhaled slowly. Maya told me about the guy from work, about the affair. I told her to tell you. I begged her, but she panicked. She said you'd leave her, that she'd lose everything. She did lose everything. I said, voice low. Lila flinched. I know. And then she came up with this insane idea. Said that if she could make you equally guilty, then maybe she could control the outcome. I told her it was manipulative, sick, but she was relentless. She begged me. You could have said no. I did, at first. But then she broke down, said she'd hurt herself, said I was the only one she trusted. I didn't know what to do. You chose her. I chose wrong, she whispered. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that hums between people who know there's no repairing what's broken. Why didn't you stop when you saw me? I asked. She looked up, tears pooling, because for a second, I wanted to be her. I wanted to feel what it was like to be loved like that, to be looked at like that. I've always been the shadow, the copy. I shook my head. You weren't her, and what we did wasn't love. She nodded slowly. I know. I'm sorry. I don't care. That hurt her. I could see it in the way she blinked, as if trying to push the pain back behind her eyes. But I wasn't here to spare her feelings. I was here to reclaim mine. She stood up quietly. "Goodbye." "Goodbye," I replied. And just like that, she was gone. I walked home under a gray sky, feeling lighter and heavier all at once. The truth had arrived, and now I had to decide what to do with it. In the days that followed, time lost its structure. There was no more routine, no good mornings with sleepy kisses, no toothbrush beside mine, no quiet hum of her boiling water for tea. The apartment, once warm and familiar, now felt like a hollow shell of memories. Like everything that had happened within these walls had been scrubbed clean, not with forgiveness, but with fire. I started sleeping on the couch. The bed felt too loud, too crowded with ghosts. Every time I walked past a mirror, I barely recognized myself. I looked tired, older, like something had been carved out of me with a dull knife and left unstitched. Some part of me, the part that used to believe in her, in us, had died, and grief doesn't wait for funerals. I spent hours replaying everything in my head, not just that night, but every night, every laugh, every kiss, every conversation, now stained by the knowledge that at some point she chose to betray me. And then, instead of facing it, she decided to rewrite the story, to repaint herself as the victim and me as the hypocrite. How long had she been planning it? Was it days? Weeks? Did she kiss me knowing what was coming? Did she smile at me across dinner, knowing her sister would be in our bed within hours? The more I thought about it, the more my stomach twisted. I wanted to hate her. That would have been easier. Hate is clean, sharp. It gives you something to grip. But what I felt was Messier, a mixture of disappointment, disbelief, and something worse, regret. Regret that I hadn't seen it, that I had loved someone who was capable of that, that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as good at reading people as I thought I was. And then there was Lila. God, I couldn't even begin to unpack that part of it. Yes, she had apologized. Yes, she had explained. But the damage was done. Her hands were just as dirty. Her decision to be Maya for a night wasn't an accident. She made a choice, one that stained every inch of my body and memory. I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. How do you explain something like that to your friends? Hey, my girlfriend cheated on me and then tricked me into sleeping with her twin sister so she wouldn't feel guilty. It sounded like a bad soap opera, like something no one would believe. And honestly, I wasn't ready for questions, or the pity, or the jokes. So I stayed quiet. I worked from home. I muted every group chat. I ignored my parents' calls. I needed space to figure out who I was without her, who I was without them. One night, I opened a folder on my laptop labeled Us. It was where we kept all our photos and videos. Vacations, birthdays, anniversaries. Frozen frames of the life I thought was real. I watched a video of us at the lake. She was laughing, barefoot, spinning in circles as I filmed her. Her hair flew in the wind, her eyes full of joy. I remember that day. We'd had an argument in the morning. Something stupid about directions or sunscreen, but it disappeared the second we reached the water. That was our thing. We always bounce back. Or so I thought. I paused the video, looked at her face, and I couldn't tell if it was Maya or Lila. The realization hit me like a slap. Even now, with everything I knew, I wasn't sure. Had Lila ever inserted herself into our life before? Swapped places just for fun? Just for curiosity? I remembered a time months ago when Maya showed up late to a dinner with my parents. Said she had to stop by Lila's first. She was acting off. A little more flirty, a little more bold. I brushed it off. Was it Maya that night? Or was it Lila? How many times had I kissed the wrong mouth? I slammed the laptop shut. I couldn't do this. Not tonight. The next morning, I made a decision. I packed a bag, just the essentials, and booked a cabin upstate for a few days. No internet. No neighbors. Just space. When I arrived, the silence was almost unbearable. But slowly, I started to breathe again. I walked through the trees. I sat by the window and watched the rain. I let myself feel everything, the pain, the shame, the sadness, and then I began to write. Not to them, to myself. I wrote everything I remembered, the good, the bad, the ugly. I wrote down what I wish I had said that night. I wrote down the questions I still had, the things I would never get answers to. I wrote down the part of myself I was afraid I'd lost in all of this. It didn't heal me, but it helped me remember who I was before I loved her, before I was tricked, before I was rewritten. By the fourth night in the cabin, I had a dream. In it, Maya and Lila stood in front of me, both wearing the same dress, same smile. "Which one am I?" one of them asked. I stared. "You don't get to ask me that," I said, and I turned around. When I woke up, I finally felt something close to clarity. Not peace, not yet, but resolve. It was time to go home. It was time to take my life back. When I got back to the city, it felt different. The streets hadn't changed. Same noise, same crowds, same neon reflections bouncing off wet pavement. But something inside me had shifted. It wasn't dramatic, not like a thunderbolt or a movie scene where the hero returns transformed. It was quieter than that, like a door in my chest had finally closed. I stood in front of my apartment building for a while before going inside. I'd lived here for nearly 3 years, 2 of them alone, one with her. And in just one night, it stopped being home. As I walked in, everything was still in its place. The clean kitchen, the couch with its slightly crooked cushions, the stack of unread mail on the counter. But now I saw it all differently, not as a shared space, but as a recovery zone, a place where a life had cracked open, and a new one needed to be rebuilt from the debris. The first thing I did was grab a box. I started pulling out everything that had her fingerprints on it. Sweaters she left in the closet, earrings forgotten in drawers, a half-used shampoo bottle in the bathroom, notes stuck to the fridge, birthday cards, that stupid mug that said, "My favorite human, we used to fight over in the mornings." I didn't cry. I thought I might, but I didn't. I was beyond the shock now, beyond the sadness. What remained was resolve, cold and steady, not revenge, not hate, just the need to reclaim what was mine, my space, my narrative, my dignity. When the box was full, I sealed it with tape and wrote her name on the top, just her first name. No address, no heart. Then I took it downstairs and left in the lobby with a message to pick it up. No call, no conversation, no opportunity for another scene. I walked back upstairs feeling like I'd carried 1,000 bricks off my chest. That night, I slept in my own bed again. Fresh sheets, open windows, no perfume clinging to the pillows. It wasn't restful, but it was real, and that was something. The next day, I went to work for the first time in over a week. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I smiled and said I just needed time off. No one pushed further. I appreciated that. On my break, I found myself scrolling through social media, something I'd avoided since everything happened. I knew it was risky, that some part of her life might sneak into mine through the cracks. And it did. There she was, Maya, posted 2 days ago. A photo of her on the beach, smiling wide, arms in the air like she'd just been released from something, letting go of the things that no longer serve you. The caption read. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or throw my phone. Letting go? Is that what she thought this was? Some self-help cleanse? A journey of empowerment that involved gaslighting and betrayal? There were likes, of course. Comments. Yes, Queen raising hands. You look so happy. That's the spirit. No one knew what she had done. No one saw the carnage she left behind to get her freedom. For a split second, I considered commenting, telling the truth, exposing everything. But I didn't. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because I did. I deserved peace more than she deserved consequences. Let her pretend. Let her craft whatever version of herself she wanted for strangers on the internet. I knew the truth. She knew the truth. And that was enough. A few days later, I got a message from an unknown number. Again, but this time it wasn't Lila. You don't have to reply. I just want you to know I've started therapy. I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed to say that I'm sorry in a real way. You didn't deserve what I did. Neither did she. I know it's too late, but I'm trying to change. I hope you're okay. M. I read it twice and then deleted it, not out of anger, but because it no longer had power over me. That weekend, I went out with some friends for the first time in months. We had drinks, laughed, talked about stupid things, movies, work, how bad one of them was at texting girls back. I didn't tell them anything. Not yet, but I smiled for real that night. And when I got home, I stood in front of the mirror for the first time and didn't look away. I saw myself. Just me. No shadows. No twins. No lies. And in that reflection, for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a man who had survived. It had been 3 weeks since I last saw Maya. 3 weeks of silence. No new texts. No missed calls. No knocks on my door. For someone who once filled my life with noise, constant, comfortable noise, her absence was deafening. And strange as it was, I began to appreciate that silence. I didn't just tolerate it. I embraced it. It gave me space to think, to breathe, to rebuild. Still, moving on isn't linear. Some days, I wake up feeling almost whole again. I go for a run, answer emails, smile at baristas. Other days, I catch myself zoning out mid-conversation, stuck in loops of what if and how could she, as if understanding her logic could offer some kind of closure. It never did. One Sunday afternoon, I ran into an old friend, Eric, at a corner cafe. He'd known both Maya and me for a while, though we weren't particularly close anymore. Still, he waved, I waved back, and we ended up sitting at the same table. He looked at me for a long second. "You look different," he said. I half smiled. "That good or bad?" "Neither. Just lighter, maybe, or tired." Tired is accurate. We talked small talk for a while. Work, weather, some new restaurant he liked. But I could see the question brewing in his eyes. Eventually, he leaned forward. "So you and Maya? What happened?" I paused, stirred my coffee. "She cheated," I said plainly. His brows raised slightly, but he didn't seem shocked. "Damn, that sucks." I had no idea. "No one does," I said. "Not really." He nodded slowly. "She posted something about finding herself. I thought maybe it was a breakup post. Looked pretty cheerful, though." "Yeah," I said. "She's good at cheerful." He hesitated again, then said, "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." But I wanted to. Not everything. Not the full twisted twin disaster. But something, a version of the truth I could say out loud without reopening every wound. She cheated. I repeated. And when I found out, instead of apologizing, she tried to twist things so I'd feel like the guilty one. So I wouldn't be angry at her. So I wouldn't leave. Eric blinked. "Damn, that's manipulative." "Yeah. She always seemed chill, thoughtful, balanced." "That's the trick," I said. "She was great until she wasn't. And by the time she wasn't, it was already too late." He looked uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. I didn't blame him. Most people don't know what to do with betrayal when it doesn't come in the form of screaming or violence. When it's quiet, calculated, planned. He eventually said, "I'm sorry, man." Seriously. "Thanks," I said, and meant it. We changed topics after that. Laughed about some old college memory. The conversation drifted back into safer waters. But for me, it was a moment, a confirmation. I'd spoken my truth, even just a sliver of it, and the world didn't end. My chest didn't cave in. I didn't crumble. That night, I thought about something Maya once said to me when we first moved in together. If we're ever in a fight, she said, "Promise me we won't go to bed angry." I had laughed at the time, kissed her forehead and agreed. But now, I understood that not every fight ends with a tidy resolution. Sometimes you just stay angry, not because you want to, but because there's no closure strong enough to cancel out betrayal. A week later, I got a letter, an actual handwritten letter. No return address, no name on the envelope, just my first name, scrawled in careful, deliberate ink. Inside was a short note. I've ruined everything. You were the only person who saw me the way I wanted to be seen. And instead of protecting that, I destroyed it. I thought I could reset things. I thought I could manipulate my way back into your heart. But love doesn't work that way. You were real. I wasn't. I hope one day you forget the worst version of me. No signature. But I knew who it was. There was only one person who would write something like that and leave it unsigned. She still couldn't face it, even in the end, even in the apology. She needed to hide behind poetry, behind mystery, as if erasing her name might erase the damage. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer, not to keep, but to remind myself of who she really was, of what I had survived. It's funny how the world moves on. Bills still arrive. People still laugh at lunch. The train still runs late. The earth doesn't pause just because you were betrayed. And slowly, you stop expecting it to. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. Nothing serious. Just lines, color, shapes that made no sense but felt like expression, like motion, like truth. I filled a small notebook with abstract sketches, each one a quiet scream or whisper I didn't have words for. I didn't tell anyone. It was just for me, and that felt sacred, like the first real secret I'd kept in a long time. I'm not healed, not completely. Some nights, I still wake up confused, wondering if it was all a dream. Some days, I still hear her laugh in places it doesn't belong. But I'm not stuck anymore, and I'm not afraid of the truth, because I've learned something. The truth doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be validated. It doesn't need to be posted. It just is. And once you face it, truly face it, it becomes a foundation for whatever you choose to build next. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, a day like any other. I had just come back from grocery shopping, arms full of dull necessities. Eggs, bread, soap, coffee. Nothing poetic about that. I was unpacking the bags when someone buzzed my apartment from the street. I wasn't expecting anyone. I froze, then pressed the intercom. Hello. A pause. Then a voice I recognized instantly. Hey, it's me. Lila. I didn't answer. The silence on the line stretched thin. I'm downstairs. I know I shouldn't be. I know you probably hate me. But I need 10 minutes. Please. 10 minutes. I almost said no. I should have. But something inside me, call it curiosity or weakness, or the need to face what was still unfinished, pressed the buzzer and unlocked the door. A minute later, she was standing in front of me. This time, there was no mistaking who she was. She looked nothing like Maya today. Her makeup was smudged, eyes red, hair pulled back in a messy bun. There was no attempt to mimic, no effort to charm. Just a woman carrying the weight of something heavy. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside, wordless. She entered slowly, like someone walking through a memory. I shut the door behind her, but didn't offer her a seat. I leaned against the wall and folded my arms. She stood in the center of the room, awkward and unsure. She turned to me. I've been trying to write you a letter for 2 weeks. I got Maya's, I said quietly. She nodded. I know, she told me. Is she the one who sent you here? No, Lila said quickly. She doesn't know I'm here. We haven't talked since everything. I left town for a while, stayed with an aunt, tried to get my head straight. I watched her closely. She wasn't lying, or at least, she was making a convincing effort not to. So, why are you here now? I asked. She swallowed hard. Because I can't carry this with me anymore. What I did, what we did, I wake up every day thinking about it. You should, I said. You helped someone destroy a person who trusted them. You pretended to be someone else. You touched me. You looked into my eyes and lied. Her voice cracked. I know. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I stood there quiet. Lila looked around the room. This place, it feels emptier now. Because it is... She nodded. I remember thinking that night, this is wrong. Even before I got here. Maya kept saying it would make things better. That it would even the score. But when I stepped into the apartment, when I saw the table, the candles, you smiling at me, not me, but her, I felt like the worst person alive. Then why did you go through with it? I asked. She looked at me, and for the first time, her voice wasn't trembling. Because I've always been second, she said. To her, to everyone. Growing up, I was the one who followed. She was the leader, the one people loved, the one who got attention. I thought if I could step into her place for one night, just once, maybe I'd feel what it was like to be chosen. I stared at her. That's not what happened. You weren't chosen. You were used. I know, she said, and the tears came fast now. I know, and I let it happen. I let myself become a weapon. Her words pierced something in me, because I believed her. Not that it made anything better, not that it rewrote what she did. But I could see, finally, that she wasn't just a villain in Maya's plan. She was collateral. Someone who had spent so long living in her sister's shadow that she didn't know where she began and where Maya ended. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I just wanted to say this to your face. I'm sorry. I really, truly am. You didn't deserve any of it. The silence after her words was deep and heavy. I walked past her and opened the door. Not angrily, not dramatically, just calmly. It was time. She looked at the door, then back at me. Goodbye, Lila, I said. She stepped out into the hallway. But before I could close it, she turned one last time. I hope one day someone loves you the way you loved her. I didn't answer. I closed the door gently, like sealing a chapter, and I stood there for a while, leaning against the wood, breathing in the silence. That night, I wrote something in my journal. Just one sentence. Some people mistake shared pain for love. I won't make that mistake again. I didn't expect to see her again. After Lila's visit, I thought the past had finally closed its mouth, that I'd heard everything that needed to be said, that the echoes would fade eventually, like voices through a wall, until there was nothing left but silence and scars. But life rarely wraps up so neatly. She came by unannounced, exactly 1 month after everything collapsed. I heard the knock, opened the door without thinking, and there she was. Maya. She looked thinner, paler. Her hair was down, unbrushed. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her body looked like it had forgotten how to carry itself with confidence. For the first time in over a year, she looked like a stranger. Hi, she said. I said nothing. She exhaled. Can I come in? No. She blinked. Not surprised. Exactly. Just hurt. Maybe by how easily the door stayed between us. I'm not here to make excuses, she said. I just want you to hear it. All of it. No lies. No tricks. You deserve that. I crossed my arms. Then talk. She leaned against the frame, like she couldn't hold herself up. I cheated on you. I thought I could handle the guilt. But the moment it happened, I knew I'd broken something I couldn't fix. You were always kind to me. Too kind, maybe. You didn't deserve that. So why not just tell me? I was afraid, she said, her voice cracking. Afraid that you'd walk away and I'd lose the best thing I ever had. So I tried to make it your fault too. I convinced myself that if I could catch you doing something just as bad, or worse, we'd be even. We'd be even? I repeated, my voice colder than I intended. You planned to use your sister to destroy what we had, and thought that would balance the scale? She winced. I know how it sounds. It's worse than I imagined, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was spiraling. I didn't want to lose you, but I couldn't face you either. So you took a shortcut, I said, one where I didn't have a say. She nodded silently. You didn't just cheat, I continued. You robbed me of the right to respond, to choose, to understand what kind of relationship I was really in. You rewrote reality and expected me to act like it was fair. Her eyes were full now, not crocodile tears, real ones, but they didn't move me. Not anymore. I think I lost myself in us, she whispered. You were so steady, so good, and I wasn't. I didn't know how to be. You didn't have to be perfect, I said. You just had to be honest. She looked down. I wasn't strong enough. And now, I'm trying, she said. I started therapy. I've been going every week. I talk about you, about Lila, about what I did. I don't expect redemption. I need you to know I'm not proud of who I became. There was a silence between us, heavy, exhausted, final. I used to picture us growing old together, she said. Stupid, I know, but I did. And even after everything, a part of me still wishes I could rewind and undo it all. I shook my head. You don't get to rewind. This isn't a movie. This is real life. And in real life, we live with what we do. She nodded, slowly. I know. Another pause. Then she looked at me with eyes that once melted me. Do you still love me? It was a cruel question. But she wasn't asking to hurt me. She was asking to hurt herself. I thought about it. About how I had loved her. How fiercely. How deeply. How blindly. And I said, no. I love the idea of who you were. But that person never existed. Not really. She swallowed hard and stepped back. I won't come here again, she said. You don't have to worry. I'm not worried. I replied. She gave me one last look. Part regret, part resignation. Then turned and walked down the hallway. I closed the door. Not like before, where it felt like ending a chapter. This time, it felt like closing a book I'd read too many times. The cover torn. The pages bent. A story that stopped making sense halfway through. Later that night, I wrote again. She finally told me the truth, and I didn't feel closure. I felt relief, because now I know I'm not healing for her. I'm healing for me. The day after Maya left for the final time, I woke up before sunrise. For the first time in months, I didn't feel dread hanging over my chest like a wet coat. There was no weight, no shadow, just stillness. And within that stillness, something unfamiliar, something almost forgotten. Peace. It wasn't euphoric. It wasn't loud. It was quiet, almost shy. A delicate hum in the back of my mind, whispering, "You're free now." I got up, made coffee, and sat by the window. The city was slowly stirring. A few headlights, the distant buzz of an early bus, the pale orange stain of morning bleeding over rooftops. And in that light, I looked at myself honestly. I didn't hate who I saw anymore. I wasn't broken. Bruised? Sure, but not broken. For a long time, I had defined myself by what I gave to others. I was the listener, the forgiver, the fixer, the one who kept calm when things fell apart. Maya had once told me, "You're like a lighthouse, always standing, no matter how rough the sea." What I hadn't realized was that lighthouses also burn from within. She never asked me how I felt when she talked about work for an hour. She never asked what I needed. Not really. And I was too blinded by the idea of love to notice I was pouring water into a bottomless well. But now I saw it. All of it. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had revealed me to myself. Revealed how much I was willing to ignore, to endure, to forgive. And I decided that day that I would never again love someone more than I respected myself. I spent the rest of the morning cleaning, not out of grief this time, but ritual. I tossed out the last of the things tied to her, an old toothbrush, a sweater I had missed, her favorite mug. This time, there was no hesitation, no drama, just acceptance. I donated what I could, trashed the rest. The apartment was finally mine again, and oddly enough, it felt bigger, like her absence had given the walls room to breathe. Later that week, I got a message from an old friend, Jen, someone I hadn't seen since college. We had lost touch like people do. No fight, no reason, just time and life pulling us in different directions. "Hey, I'm in the city for a few days. Want to grab coffee?" I stared at the screen. In the past, I would have said no. Too tired, too anxious, too emotionally raw. But now I wanted to say yes. So I did. We met at a quiet cafe on the east side. When she walked in, she smiled like the years between us never happened. We hugged, sat down, and started talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her job, her dog, her failed sourdough experiments. I told her I was coming out of something painful. Not the whole story, but enough. And she didn't pity me. She just listened. At one point, she asked, "So what's next?" And I paused. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I finally did. "I think I'm just learning to live with open space," I said, for the first time in a long time. She nodded. "That's brave." I hadn't thought of it that way, but maybe it was. That night, I didn't write anything. I didn't need to. There was nothing to process. No thoughts clawing to escape. Just silence, and this time, not the painful kind. It was the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. The kind that tells you you've survived something you weren't sure you could. The next morning, I opened my phone and deleted Maya's contact. Not blocked, not hidden, deleted. Like she had never been more than a name in a phone, one that no longer held power or meaning or access to the heart she once mistook for a weakness. I made breakfast. I played music. I sang out loud like an idiot. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the man who was betrayed. I saw the man who chose himself. It's strange how something that once felt like your whole world can shrink into a memory. Not a sharp one, not a bleeding one, just a dull, distant outline. Like a house you once lived in that's now someone else's. That's what Maya became. Not a scar, not a tragedy, just something that happened. A chapter one finished writing. And closed. It's been a few months now. Enough time for wounds to scab over, for silence to turn from hollow to healing. Enough time for mornings to feel normal again. And nights, no longer lonely, but still, peaceful. I've filled the quiet with things that belong only to me. Late night walks, new books, a playlist I made that has no trace of her voice. I even started painting again, not the angry, chaotic lines from before, but slower strokes, softer colors. Not every piece means something. Some of them just are. And that's okay. Not everything needs to be a metaphor for pain. People ask sometimes, friends, co-workers, if I'm over it. And I never really know what to say. There's no line you cross, no milestone that marks the exact moment you've healed. But I know this. I no longer replay the night it all fell apart. I don't search her name. I don't imagine the things I wish I'd said. I don't dream of revenge or vindication or closure, because I already have it. I gave it to myself. One evening, while cleaning my shelves, I found the drawer with a letter, the one Maya left unsigned. I held it for a few seconds, not with anger, not with longing, just curiosity. And then I walked to the kitchen, struck a match, and burned it, watching the paper curl and blacken over the sink until all that remained was a fragile pile of ash. It didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel cinematic. It felt like honesty, like release, like truth taking a final breath and letting go. Sometimes I think about Lila. Not often, but when I do, it's with a strange sense of peace. Because while she was part of the destruction, she was also the mirror that showed me who I'd become and who I didn't want to be anymore. We were all broken in that story, but not all of us stayed that way. There's no happy ending here. Not the kind people expect. Anyway, no new love interest. No perfect resolution. Just a man standing in the quiet after the storm, breathing, still here, still whole. And for now, that's enough. One last journal entry, written in black ink across the final page. She left. She lied. But I remained, not because I couldn't leave, but because I knew the truth doesn't walk away. It stays. And I stayed with it.